Torah begins articulating the materials that were needed for the Mishkan. Zov, Chesv, and Nechoshes. Gold, silver, and copper. I'd quote, just this question just came to mind at this moment. The Medrash tells us that Zosat Shuma shetikach mitom. This is the truma you should take from them. So the Medrash says, don't think for a moment that I'm asking you to bring from yours, but rather I'm asking you to bring from the Bizas Hayam. This wealth is not from the wealth that you took out of Egypt on the pack animals that you borrowed from the Egyptians, but rather this is the spoils of the sea. Okay? So we understand. Gold, silver, we understand. The chariots were bedecked with gold, silver. But what about Tchelis Argomon, the various dyes, the wool, the wood, right? That wasn't Bizas Hayam, correct? That wasn't the spoils of the sea. The spoils of the sea were, we understand, gold, silver, copper maybe. The chariot wheels were maybe made of copper, but all the other materials, Tcheles, Argomon, wool dyed, Tcheles, Argomon, Tolashoni, Sheish Izim, Oras Elim, we're talking about the various hides, Shem and Lamor, the oil that was extracted for or b'samim, the spices, l'shem amishcha. I mean, that has nothing to do with Bizas Hayam, correct? So what is Hashem saying? When I'm asking you to bring to me, it's not from yours, it's from the Bizas Hayam. The question just entered my mind at this moment. So I'm thinking, remember what I had said, that anything that we could attribute to ourselves, we believe, although it's a gift of Hashem, somehow we feel the reason why we succeeded has to do with ourselves. Therefore, we have a right to it. For instance, as I always explained, as much as a person believes that that one's yearly stipend is determined from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, but yet anybody does any deal, the reason why he succeeded, ultimately, he believes it has to do with his experience, his education, his personality, his connections. Of course, Hashem was involved, or he could have prevented it from happening, but definitely you feel good about that you did the deal because you somehow, was due to your involvement, that's when you were able to close the deal. So as much as intellectually we believe it, but the question is, how do we internalize it? We internalize it to the degree that, but we also had something to do with it. The Bizas Hayam. So when we left Egypt, why did the Egyptians give us their valuables, their gold and silver vessels? Because the Torah tells us we found special favor in their eyes. The Egyptians saw us being special. Meaning they saw us, it was a privilege to lend us. If that's the case, it had to do with us. Hashem says, I'm not asking. If that's the case, I'm not asking what's from yours. Although even that was a miracle. Here you're slaves, you're chattels, and now all of a sudden they see you as masters, and they feel privileged they can lend you their gold and silver. It doesn't make a difference, but the experience is, why did they give it to us? Of course, they saw us being special. The spoils of the sea is unrelated to you. The Jews were worried, were concerned that maybe when the sea closed, the Egyptians did not drown, but rather they were coming around from the other side. So Hashem had to show them that the Egyptians died, were all killed. And this is when they were thrown out on the seashore with the chariots. And the chariots being bedecked with gold, silver, and the precious jewels, that's what they took. That they cannot attribute to themselves. So Hashem says, when I'm asking you to bring me the various materials, it's not from yours, it's from Bizas Hayam. Now, the Sefarno made a point. Over here, the materials themselves that were given were used in the Mishkan itself. It's not, the materials were only a commodity to purchase as a means, a medium to purchase the necessary materials. but the materials they actually gave were the materials which were theirs. Okay? Good. So now, what they took out of Egypt was all that we speak about here. Silver, gold, copper, the 13 materials that were needed. However, what about, I say to you, give me special kind of wool dyed certain colors, and I will pay you with gold. I'll pay you with gold. Did you give me the wool or the cop or the dyes or the oil or that special kind of wood? You didn't give it to me. That's the exchange for what you took out of Egypt. So factually, a lot of these materials were taken out of Egypt, but they were purchased with the Bizas Hayam. They were exchanged with the spoils of the sea. As a result of that, everything that went into the Mishkan was not you gave of your own. It's from Hashem. It's God's gift to you. If somebody gives me $1 million and I buy something with it for him, even though I bought it for him or I exchanged for him, did I give it to him? He paid for it. God paid for everything. Every aspect of Mishkan was endowed gift of God. But there was no wool, there was no dyes. But you purchased that with the gems. That was an exchange. Automatically, everything that I'm asking you, you're not giving me anything. It's all what I've given you as a gift. That's my understanding. So over here, the Baal HaTurim makes a point, just to skip to Pasuk Vav, Shemen Lamaor, oil that was extracted for illumination, for the menorah, which has that Shemen Zay Zoch. It's the purest oil. It's the first droplet of oil that was extracted from the olive. That's Shemen Lamaor. So over here, the Baal HaTurim makes it a point, the word Ma'or, the Vav is deleted. You see? It should be spelled, there should be a Vav between the Aleph and the Resh. Why does the Torah delete the Vav? So if you look in the Baal HaTurim, Choser Dlo La'orutz Orech. Remember we had mentioned, there's a Medrash, the Medrash tells us, what does the Aron represent? The Aron is Torah Shebechsav. What was contained within the Aron? The Luchos, the first set of which were broken, that's called Shivrei Luchos, the Luchos, the second set of tablets, and a Sefer Torah. So what was in the Aron represents Torah Shebechsav, the written law. The menorah is the elucidation of the what? Of the written law. That's Torah Shebaal Peh. So if the menorah is Torah Shebaal Peh, where should the menorah been situated? It should be situated right alongside the Aron. But yet the Torah makes it a point later. It says, where should you put the menorah? Michutz la paroches, on the other side of the curtain. Not alongside the Aron, but on the other side of the curtain where the golden table was and the golden altar was. Not alongside the Aron. Why? Even though logically, the place where it should be right alongside the Aron. Because all the Siyata D'Shmaya, which we are able to understand, the Torah Shebechsav, which is Torah Shebaal Peh, is generated through the illumination of the menorah. So its proper location should be alongside the Aron. But Hashem makes it a point. Michutz la paroches. It's on the other side of the curtain. Why? To tell us, La'orchem eni tzorich. I don't need your light. God says, I don't need anything from you. Okay? That's why you should put it on the other side of the curtain. So the reason why it's written deficiently, God doesn't need the light. The light is not for him, it's for us. But to tell you clearly, Orchem eni tzorich. The Medrash, so therefore, it's alluded by the Vav being deleted. The Medrash says, when Hashem says, Shemen Lamaor to Moshe, Moshe asks Hashem a question. You're asking us to illuminate the menorah in the location where the Shechinah is. So Moshe says to Hashem, do you need our light? Ata orcho shel olam. You are the light of the world. So by us kindling this menorah, what's its value? If you're orcho shel olam. So Hashem responds to Moshe, La'aloschem be'eini umas ha'olam, to elevate you in the eyes of the nations of the world. to show them that I do need your light. This is the medrash. So we asked in the past, what does Hashem want us to pull the wool over the nations of the world? In reality, God doesn't need the light. But that we kindle the light is to elevate you, to show the world that I do need your light. But if he doesn't need it, what's this understanding to elevate you? And besides that, what the nations of the world should believe that what God needs, God is self-sufficient. God needs nothing. God is absolute. So we explained in the past was this. The way God created the world, everything is based on worthiness, reward and punishment. Now, who determines whether the world goes forward or the world regresses? Is it the actions of the non-Jew or the actions of the Jew? It's the action of the Jew. It's not the world. If the nations of the world, they sin, it's only something which is personalized to them. When the Jew sins, it affects the balance of the world balance. So therefore, to maintain existence, it's all dependent on our behavior. Whether the world rises or the world falls. For instance, the pasuk tells us, which we mentioned, the Reb Chaim Volozhiner says it, and the Chofetz Chaim cites the name of the Zohar, based on the pasuk, Im lo brisi yom v'loilo chuks shemaim v'aretz something. If there's ever a moment that there's no Torah, even for one moment, the world reverts back to pre-existence. So what keeps the world going? That Torah is always being studied. There's never a lapse of Torah. So if there's ever a moment where the Jew is not studying Torah, being Jewish people, the world reverts back to pre-existence. So everything is contingent on what? Hashem says, I need your light. Right? Ner mitzvah Torah or. The or is orchem and itzorech. The or, the light of the menorah, that light is referring to ner mitzvah v'torah. That's Torah Sheba'al Peh. Without the Torah, there is no world. Therefore, it's l'orchem nitzorech. But factually, does God need anything? God could always, I would always say, God could always override the system. Even we speak about midas, one of the attributes of God is chesed. Chesed means even if we're undeserving, God could override the system and he could treat us the way he chooses to treat us, despite the evaluation that we're undeserving. Because that's midas chesed, that's the attribute of chesed. So l'orchem eini tzorech. God says factually, I generate everything. I'm not locked to any system. But factually, what is the parameters or what's the function of the world? L'orchem eini tzorech. It's all based upon whether you study Torah, how you do the mitzvahs. Does the world rise or does the world fall? So deleted is to tell us God is not dependent on anyone. Even though he set a system, he's not bound to that system. He can always override the system. But factually, why do we light it? To tell the world that the world functions based on our behavior. That's l'orchem ani tzorech te lahalos eschem be'eni umas olam. To elevate you in the eyes of the nations of the world.